Laura Perry, Race Director of the Community First Fox Cities Marathon, presented by Myron Construction. And welcome to our first ever Doc Talk. Doc Talk is a new series that features medical experts from our sponsors, Ascension, Orthopedic Sports Institute of the Fox Valley, Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Specialists, and Theta Care. Today we welcome Dr. Jennifer Steinhoff of Ascension's Department of Sports and Orthopedic Medicine. Dr. Steinhoff is a sports medicine physician, passionate runner, and she's a member of our Community First Fox Cities Marathon Board of Directors. She took her training in the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. She did her family medicine residency in Ohio. And then she came back to Wisconsin, where she served as a family physician in the Waupaca area before coming back to Appleton. So we're very excited to have her kick it off today because she has a unique intersection of combining her career with her passion for running. And boy, does she have a passion for running. She's actually completed 18 marathons, including 5 of our very own Community First Fox Cities Marathon. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Steinhoff to the webinar today. Dr. Steinhoff?
Hi, thanks so much for having me and for this opportunity to share with the community and just give some people some hopefully helpful advice.
That sounds great. So now we have several questions for you, but before we get really into that, I was just hoping that you could share a little bit about your story as a runner. So how did you get started with running?
I actually grew up not being very athletic. I did a little bit of softball and a little bit of middle school track thrown in between, but I really wouldn't consider myself a runner until high school when my sister convinced me to join the cross country team, and it just kind of took off from there. At first I could barely struggle through a mile over the summer in preparation for the season starting, but week by week I just gained endurance and really enjoyed the team atmosphere and just continued on from there all the way until now.
That's awesome. I think one of the things that is interesting is I think people are thinking about starting this running journey. What are some of the things, I know you talk about running as a joy for you. What are the things that keep you motivated over all of these years? And we're not going to talk about how old we both are, right? But it takes some motivation to stick with it. So what's your secret?
I just love, being able to get outside every day, except for the occasional bad weather days that we get here in Wisconsin. But I love movement. I love the feeling of, seeing how fast I can go on certain days, and then just being out and about on other days and getting to enjoy seeing the scenery and just, feeling the pounding of my feet on the pavement. It's something that gets me out of bed every morning and something that I look forward to.
So it's kind of like your time for yourself during the day to give yourself some good self-care then, right?
It can serve a lot of purposes and different things for different people. So for some of us, it's time to get away, time to think through problems. For some of us, it's stress relief. For some of us, it's maybe an opportunity to meet other people or to have some social time if someone is running with a group or with a running partner. It's exercise. It's good for your heart. It's good for your bones. It's good for getting you to sleep at night. So there's so many benefits, and so different people are drawn to it for different reasons, but sometimes they find even more things than what they were looking for.
Oh, I bet. Well, and let's dive into it because I bet people are thinking, wow, that does sound great. Lots of great benefits. One of the questions we had was just kind of, how do you get started? And I know you have a great, just kind of one pager that gives people some good tips. So could you just give us a quick overview of what is involved in a startup program?
Sure. So the handout is just kind of a skeleton format of building up from no running experience to 30 minutes, which might be roughly a 5K distance for some people, depending on your pace. But it's really not about pace or distance in the beginning. It's more about time, just getting out there, getting your feet on the ground, getting yourself moving, and then building from there. So it builds up by 30-second intervals, and it just goes through. So the repeating 6 intervals per day. So it's always 30 minutes of exercise, but it's a variation between the amount of walking and the amount of running. So it starts out with 30 seconds running, 4.5 minutes of walking, all the way up to, adding a little bit more running, a little bit less walking each day, up to that 30 minutes of continuous running. And it's based off of a 3-day run day week. So hopefully it's not too overwhelming for anyone's schedule, but also enough that you're not sort of losing your progress by having too much time in between the days. So just kind of a baseline. People can adjust it as needed, and we can talk more about that too if you like.
Well, great. Yeah, I think that's a great start. So I heard about 3 days a week for running, 30 minutes at a time. I think, if people schedule themselves, they should be able to fit that in. So, hopefully that's doable for, someone that's just thinking about getting started. What if there's people out there that aren't even walking for 30 minutes at a time? What would you say to them for getting started? Is this something that could get them motivated to just even build up to that 30?
Sure. The general guideline is to try and be at walking 30 minutes consistently before you start the walk run. Of course, there's some flexibility in that, but it's just good to kind of have yourself at some fitness level baseline so that you're not overdoing it and, then getting disappointed because it's taking a little bit more time to progress. So if you build up to that 30-minute walk and then start adding in those 30-second running intervals, I think that's a good place just to kind of then keep that forward progression of continuing to add in the running.
Great. Well, and I know some people are worried about injury and, how do they know if they're just sore because they're using different, muscles that they haven't used for a long time, or if they've actually got an injury. And one of the things that I read in your handout is that, you do that slow increase so that you're avoiding injury. So could you talk a little bit more about the slow increase and then just what people should be looking for as far as like, nope, that's just soreness versus that might be something you need to get checked out?
So anytime that we do something new, we tend to get sore from it if you've done enough repetitions of it. So whether that's, moving furniture or starting a new exercise program, anytime that you're overdoing it a little bit, your body tends to let you know that it wasn't quite ready for that. So normal soreness is generally going to be something that's kind of more of a mild ache, not the type of thing that's really keeping you from doing your normal daily activities, but just something where you say, oh yeah, I remember that I did something different, earlier in the day or the day before, and now I'm just kind of noticing it a little bit. Sometimes it can be worse actually a day or so later, but it tends to resolve within a day or two and not really cause any long-term symptoms versus an injury tends to be more something that maybe keeps you from fully putting your joint through its range of motion. So maybe you can't fully bend your knee, or maybe you're having a hard time stepping down on your foot because your ankle hurts. Maybe you have some swelling that's limiting you. Definitely something that's causing you to limp, causing you to walk or run differently because something doesn't feel right. Those are definitely things that I would want to rest for a few days, and then if not better after resting, then have those evaluated because there may be something more to do for treatment for that type of an injury.
Great. That's really great. Another thing that I think is important too that you've highlighted is, and this is going to help strengthen and prevent injury, is cross training. So when you think about cross training, what are the benefits? Why do you think people should do that? How often? What are some tips for the cross training?
So cross training is just doing a different type of activity than sort of your main activity. So if running or walking is your main activity, then cross training could be a variety of things. It could be swimming, it could be deep water running, hiking, tennis, really anything. So sometimes it's good to get creative. Some people like to try and use some different muscle groups that they're not using in their primary exercise to kind of be a more well-rounded athlete. Strength training also is good. Yoga, Pilates, they all kind of focus on different things. So typically we like for people to be exercising most days of the week. So the recommendation for adults is 150 minutes of exercise of any type per week. So if you have your 3 running days, then maybe you're picking 2 other days in the week to do something different. And it can even be something, unstructured. So if you have kids, set up an obstacle course in the backyard where you run to one thing and then you do 10 push-ups and then you skip to the next thing and then you do 10 sit-ups, and you can, have different things for the adults versus the kids, but just make it fun, involve the family. The key is getting your heart rate up a little bit, getting you moving, breaking a sweat. That all counts as exercise.
That's awesome. I love that idea too, because it's like you can get your kids involved, you can get friends involved. I mean, it's more fun when you're doing it with someone. So that's a really great idea. Another thing I think people, wonder about when they're just getting started is, do I need special equipment to get going with this new activity? Do you have any like basic gear that someone should consider purchasing if they're going to get started on this program?
One of the great things about running is that you don't need a lot of equipment. Of course, it depends on the season, but your key piece of equipment, of course, is a pair of running shoes, and they should be running shoes and not cross trainers or basketball shoes or, whatever you have around the house. So first recommendation is to go to a specialty running store. So in the area, Shields, Fleet Feet, Runaway shoes are all good options. The people who work there are trained in fitting you in the right shoe. So having you try on some different brands, looking at your foot, watching you run in them, making sure that they're a good model for you. So that's step one. Beyond that, it's really just some comfortable clothes. So if you have something, especially this time of year, that's light and breathable, that's going to be helpful in keeping you a bit more cool. In the winter, it's layering up and trying to get some of those more technical or synthetic fabrics can be helpful just to kind of keep you a bit more comfortable, but it really doesn't have to be fancy, especially when you're getting started and, figuring out what you like or don't like. Just pair of shoes, t-shirt and shorts is really all you need to get out the door, and socks, comfortable socks.
And comfortable socks. I love it. So, that's some great insight on that. I think, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here and talk about the current environment that we're in with, the COVID-19 situation and running safely. So if people are venturing outside, what would you recommend that they should be thinking about as they're considering doing that?
As of right now, we're still allowed to be outside exercising, which is great. It's great for our mental health. It's great for our physical health. So hopefully that recommendation continues. As of right now in the Fox Valley area, we don't have any restrictions as far as masking for those types of outdoor activities where there's not close contact. So I think it's okay for runners and walkers to be out exercising alone without a mask on. I wouldn't necessarily recommend being out in a group with close contact without that extra protection. But if you're able to maintain that 6-foot distance, at least most of the time, I think it's okay to be out on the sidewalks and roads and trails. But I would, really try and maintain that distance. I think for the most part, people are trying to be courteous, and that's what I would recommend. If you're walking with a family member or that kind of thing, try and watch out for other people, and instead of being side by side, move to single file, and just, everybody then can pass each other safely and everyone can be out enjoying the nice weather.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's good to probably vary it up, right? You can run inside, you can run outside. Any tips for people that might be more prone to using a treadmill, at their home or at the gym when it's safe? What are some things people should be thinking about from a treadmill perspective? Is it different than running outside?
A treadmill is a little bit different. Everybody has their likes and dislikes. Some people really love the treadmill, some people really don't. Some people, it's just a preference for their time of day or what they're trying to get out of their workout for that day. The treadmill does allow you to vary inclines and paces and things just at the touch of a button. The surface might be a little bit softer, but it also can be quite monotonous and boring without the change of scenery and without the change of terrain. And so there's kind of a trade-off there. But otherwise, I think for the most part, it's just whatever works for a particular person. So what I want is for people to be active. And if that means using the treadmill, that's fine. And if that means getting outside, that's fine. And if it means one day one and one day the other, that's great. If you find that you're in a particular pattern of using the treadmill most of the time and hoping to do some sort of outside event when those happen again, then I would recommend transitioning to the pavement just to get used to that surface and to kind of what that feels like as far as you moving your body versus the treadmill kind of propelling you forward. But otherwise, I think it's up to the individual person.
That's really good thoughts on that, because I think it is. And I think there's a lot of people that vary, they go back and forth. So, it's kind of what works for you that day or that week. So thanks for those thoughts. I know that, with your career, you have a really unique vantage point between, a passion of running and what's good as a physician, right? So I know you have a motto of exercise is medicine, and I just think that's awesome, because it's all about getting moving and staying healthy that way. Have you, seen someone have a success story that you might be able to share with us? Because I'm guessing there's probably somebody out there going, yeah, that sounds great, but I just don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. Some are more obvious than others that, exercise can be helpful for. So in my prior career as a rural family doctor, we saw a lot of chronic conditions, heart disease, diabetes, just chronic pain, things like that, stress, anxiety, depression, and exercise is a treatment for all of those. Now, sometimes it needs to be used in conjunction with medications or therapy, but for some people, it really can be the only thing that they need, or at least a big jump start for them. I did have a patient who was able to get off of all of her blood pressure medications just by really being consistent in starting and maintaining a walking program. And she learned to love it. And, all of a sudden she was someone who was out there every day too. And so you don't have to be the lifelong athlete to benefit from picking up exercise at whatever point you're at in your life. And it could help you to, potentially get off some medications, or at least just to feel better, just to, most people, I think, that are long-term exercisers say that they feel better every day that they are able to move. And that's not to say that some people don't have certain scheduled days off during the week or need a break here or there, but just kind of that pattern of exercise more days than not tends to lead to a happier person.
Awesome. So in my head, I'm picturing like this little old lady that has kicked to the curb her pain or her medication, and now she's out being active. Am I guessing right, or is it somebody that was really young that happened to?
Actually, I mean, the person I have in mind was younger, so I think it can be anyone. But I mean, that's another thing that I think is great about running, is that you may get slower over time. You may run different distances or have a different focus over time, but I mean, I want to be the person who's 90 and out running. So it's fun to see some of the marathons, especially even like the major marathons where there's a few people in that 80 plus age group, and it's like, wow, you know, I wonder how long they've been out there doing this, and you know, I wonder what that's been like for them, you know, that journey's been like. So it's not limited by age. You don't turn a certain age and then you can't be a runner anymore. You just have to kind of listen to your body and figure out what's right for you, and, you know, maybe consult with a physician if needed, just to find out, are there, you know, do you have certain risk factors to work with? But otherwise, you know, it can be for everyone.
That's awesome. You know, and I think that's a really, really important point, because people can start at any age, they can stop, they can come back. You know, I just think that's great. I have a friend that, you know, she didn't start running until she was in her 40s, if I remember right. So, you know, it's whatever works for you at that point in time in your life. And I think that's such a great point, Jennifer. You know, I think we're just about running out of time here. I'm just wondering, you know, are there any parting thoughts or questions that you thought you'd get asked that we didn't cover tonight?
I don't think there's anything else I can think of at the moment. I just hope that everyone listening will consider being active most days of the week. And if running is something that you're intrigued by and you haven't started, or you did a while ago and are interested in getting back into, then I hope that it doesn't seem too intimidating to just pick up a walk-run program, see what you think. Again, the program that I'm putting out is just, you know, just kind of a baseline format. So if you need to, you know, make it a little bit longer, repeat some of the days because it's progressing too quickly, that's okay. You know, just setting a goal and working towards it can be very fulfilling as well. So just get out there and see what you can do.
That's awesome. It's like, just put one foot in front of the other and just start moving. You know, that's really the main thing. And I just appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, because I think this is hopefully going to help a lot of people become more active and have more healthy lives, and just have a more happier life too, because you said as well, the mental benefits are there. So I think I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope that you guys out there listening and watching us were inspired today to get started. And we really encourage you to do so. We have a 5K as part of our weekend of events. It's sponsored by Ascension, and we are already collecting registrations. So it's open if you need to spend some money and really lock in that goal. You know, we've got the September 18th, 2021 Ascension 5K just waiting for you. So we could maybe be your first 5K, and I think that would be pretty cool. Our 5K is actually a really beautiful course. It's in Neenah, Wisconsin at Riverside Park. It starts and ends there, and you get to see some really scenic river and water views of Lake Winnebago and the Fox River, as well as some pretty neat historic neighborhoods. And it helps Ascension and St. Elizabeth's Cancer Foundation, their cancer fund. So for every $5 is taken out of every adult registration, and it goes back to St. Elizabeth's Cancer Fund. So it's really kind of a win-win. So thank you so much for joining us today. And please know that as you start your journey, we're going to be here cheering for you. And I really, really hope to see you in September. Watch for more Doc Talks, and like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram.